Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today we are going to discuss about a question. How can we handle the situation where most of the work items during the sprint execution getting moved to QA on the last day of the sprint from development? This is a very important question and very commonly asked question. How to handle the situation, especially like most of the work items that we have picked as part of the sprint execution getting moved from development to QA on the last day of the sprint. So how are we going to handle the situation? Because QA is not going to get enough time. I am going to share my experience and how I handle the situation, and also I'm going to separate the sections based on best practices. So what are the best practices that work for me? I'm going to share that. Let's start from backlog refinement. So now you may be asking the question, Selvi, the question is related to sprint execution and the time that we are going to get for QA because development is delaying the task. Why are you talking about backlog refinement? Actually, the first best practice that I'm going to share is going to start from the backlog refinement. In the backlog refinement, we need to follow definitely something which is user story splitting. We always think in a fashion, for example, if when estimating a user story, if it's actually not going more than 8, then it seems to be good. We no need to actually split it. This is one of the concept that we generally follow. I'm not a big fan of that. Instead, I'm going to tell you a different story. It's not about what is the estimation value that the story is holding. It is all about what is the goal that the story is going to give or achieve. What's the difference? Let's consider, for example, adding users, removing users, or adding users and updating users. These are two different functionalities, two different goals basically. If I'm able to add a user to the application, that's one of the goals. That's not going to have anything related to modification of the user details or removal of the user details or removing the user itself. But in some cases, there is a story that is talking in a way the information like adding the users and also updating the users or modifying the user details. And from estimation point of view, we are thinking that it is going to have 8 story points. So we all are good. Like, okay, fine. Anyway, it's 8 story points. So it's going to fit in a sprint cycle of 2 weeks because my sprint length is 2 weeks. So definitely it's going to fit. So I don't have further questions on that. I'm happy to move with 8 story points and this story. No. Why are we not putting the question? Why can't we break the story? Even though it is fitting within a sprint and it is taking 8 story points, which is still feasible to consider, but it has 2 goals associated with it. Why can't we split that story? We should ask this question in the backlog refinement. So, backlog refinement, we need to always think in the way a story should hold a goal, not more than a goal. If more than one goal is associated to a story, please request to split the story. That is one of the ask and one of the analysis we need to definitely do in the backlog refinement session. What is the advantage, Selvi? What are we going to achieve because of splitting the story? Yes, we are going to definitely have a change. Instead of this single story, we are going to have 2 stories. One is going to target on adding the users and another one is going to target on modifying the user details. So what is the advantage during the sprint execution? The first story may get completed maybe in 2 days or 3 days, for example, and the other story can be taken after the first story. The advantage here is we have a developed work item, a developed functionality, which is completely available to test now. That is the advantage we have. So always encourage this. user story splitting. Do not go with whether the user story point is 8, that means it's all good, so I'm good to fit this in my sprint, so I'm not going to have any user story splitting. That's not the whole agenda. The agenda here is how to split the story so that each and every story has a goal, single goal associated with it. So user story splitting, and how this is going to be helpful and ensure that the testing is going to happen early. The first thing is, as I mentioned, the first story will be picked up from day one, for example, and it will be getting completed instead of the whole story with 2 goals going on till the end of the sprint. Now we are able to, as we have broken that into 2 stories, the first story we are picking it now, and the tester can take it after the closure, which can, development closure can happen on the 3rd day or 4th day. Still we have time to test, right? And maybe after that, 7th day or 8th day, we may be getting second story. That's all fine. It's not going to have everything on the last day. Instead, we are trying to reduce the load. So go with the option of user story splitting if you feel that there is an opportunity to split the story if they have more goals associated with it. I think this point is clear. The second point is going to be adding QA or testing relevant task in the sprint planning. So we all know in the sprint planning, we come up with a goal, we prepare our sprint backlog, and after that we also have one more activity, which is the task breakdown activity. So in most cases, we always talk about, hey, like design, development, peer review, designing unit test cases, documentation, testing. That's all we try to have as a template whenever we think about the task inside a story. Try to add 2 more things. The first one is test case design. We may be doing that. Test case design, of course, because without that we may not be able to get into the test execution. I'm going to recommend one more thing here, which is called as the test case review. What is the benefit of doing test case review? The very first day, second day, test case design may be happening from QA end based on the acceptance criteria of the stories, which are part of the sprint backlog. Now, tester is going to share these test cases to the entire team. Product owner is going to get, developers are going to get, and even other testers are going to get. Whoever available in the team, they all are going to get this. Now, the advantage is for every story, high-level test scenarios are documented, which are going to be reviewed by product owner. So, product owner is going to get the opportunity, hey, there are some more expectations I have set. Why there are no test cases for this? Why there are no scenarios? So product owner is going to call out that information. And if some scenarios are having some information which product owner is having a different expectation, that will also be called out in that particular review process. This is from product owner point of view. Tester is going to get the benefit. If some scenarios are missed out or some scenarios are different from what product owner is expecting, then and there we are going to get the comments, so that it is a good opportunity to cover that well in advance in the cycle. The second part is when we are sharing with the developers, it's a win-win situation, right? Like developers are going to review all the test scenarios and going to understand, hey, these scenarios I never thought about. Oh, this is a negative test scenario, which I have not even thought in my code at all. Now let me introduce that. And in the same way, they are also going to share something if tester is missing in the test scenarios. Hey, like you missed this scenario. How about that? Because I'm covering that in my code. Can you please think about that option as well? So this is kind of like win-win situation between the developer and tester that's happening here. So well in advance, developer is understanding what are the test cases that QA is going to cover as part of the story. So all those scenarios, other than the exploratory scenarios, everything that is part of the acceptance criteria is already documented. So the advantage for the developer is these all things can be very well covered from the development point of view itself. When I say development, when coding itself, there is an opportunity. Okay, I missed this scenario, I missed this use case, let me cover this use case, whether my code is going to handle this use case. All these checks can happen from development because of this test case review. Of course, there will be extra scenarios, exploratory topics that tester will be covering. That's, of course, that generally should happen. It should not stick within that boundary. But most of the high level scenarios, acceptance test cases as such, they are already shared. So it is a very good opportunity that the developer is well aware of what are the scenarios that are going to be tested when I'm going to hand over my code to QA. So this is a very good opportunity for both the sides. So this is one thing which will definitely help. The third one I'm going to talk about is, from second one point of view, so when, developer is going to understand what are the scenarios, tester is going to understand how it is going to reduce the time. It is not going to reduce the time message. It is going to have already a kind of quality check that's happening in the review process, because you are sharing the test scenarios from testing point of view, and from development they are going to consume that, and already they are aware of what are the scenarios. So definitely a quality check is introduced here well in advance in the cycle. So this is also a kind of like a checkpoint, and it is definitely going to reduce the number of testing cycles or number of observations that we are going to get when we are getting the build for testing at the QA level. So this is one such opportunity. I feel it is really going to be beneficial. And the next point is static testing versus dynamic testing. What is this concept, Selvi? So yeah, let's try to understand what is static testing. As the name suggests, right? Without execution, if we perform a testing, that is called a static testing. Dynamic testing is if we execute the software, if we execute the return test cases and look for expected results, actual results from the application, and compare with the expected results, that is actually dynamic testing. Let me get into the details so that you will get a clear picture on that. So as I mentioned, static testing means no execution involved there, which means what we will be doing in that testing, we will be reviewing artifacts. When I say reviewing, you can review the design as a tester, architectural design. You can sit with your architect once the final view is available, share your comments, learn from the architectural design, and try to put the questions there. What are the loopholes that you are able to see, especially in that design? And what are the use cases that you can definitely add in your test scenarios? Think about that. So that is a kind of review that you can do. This is also a kind of like walkthrough session, which is a part of static testing. So we are not doing any execution here. It is all about kind of like walkthrough on the artifacts which are available. Also for peer review, you can actually, one such review we already talked about, which is a test case review, right? Which is a static testing. We are not executing any software, any application here based on the test cases. But what are we trying to learn? We are trying to learn from the test cases that are already written, and we are reviewing that and bringing a win-win situation. So it's an advantage. So try to do static testing as much as you can wherever possible. So if you have an API contract, just understand that how it is actually written and what are the things involved and what are the things that you can add as part of the test scenarios. Try to learn from that. So these all are the things definitely as part of static testing you can do in the early sprint cycle, because these things will be happening at the very beginning of the sprint, right? Because design, we will be completing the design early. We will be ensuring that the API contracts are available. So all these things will be happening at the very beginning of the sprint. So you have good amount of time. Even if you have observations now, you can share it. So it will definitely reduce the testing time at the end, because these all things are like smaller blocks, right? You may think that, oh, how test review is going to help? How actually splitting the story is going to help? How these things, I'm going to conclude at the end, but I'm still saying that now these all things are bringing and improving quality as a smaller block at every level. So it's not like on the 8th day I'm going to get everything and it's like too many things on my plate and I'm getting bombarded with the user stories that are coming to QA. No, that's not the situation. You are very confident because most of the things already you have seen, and you are very confident that most of the things are already tested. Only thing is it was partial. Now you are going to conclude it. That's the difference. So now back to static testing. So you can perform static testing very well in the places wherever you have opportunity at the beginning of the sprint. Now, talking about dynamic testing, this testing we all are aware. Based on test cases, we look for actual results from the application by executing the test cases, and we compare that with the expected results. If there is a deviation, then we call that as an observation or issue or bug. So now try to have more and more static testing at the beginning, because dynamic testing you can do only when you have the working product available or the application or the software. But static testing, it's easy from the beginning. As we mentioned, reviews, walkthroughs are definitely going to help to bring lot of confidence. So try to balance this out. It's not necessary, it's not something like we need to do only dynamic testing. Definitely there are opportunities to do static testing. Please include static testing opportunities, so that you can definitely reduce the testing time at the end of the sprint, because you are already aware of most of the things as part of the review and walkthrough, and you have shared good number of observations. Okay, so this is the third point I want to share. Now the fourth point. Now coming to the sprint execution, I want to talk about intermediate testing. So what is intermediate testing? Intermediate, as the name suggests again, right? Like, don't wait for the complete working product to be available. Try to break down the working product and try to understand wherever there is a testing scope, and call out that in the daily scrum call. Hey, like, okay, what's happening when developer is explaining, hey, I'm just designing the page, and the page design is done, but I'm waiting for the API integration. So that's one thing pending. Now call out that, hey, like, can you please show it to me? Not necessarily you need to push to the QA branch, but I really want to see how it is actually looking as a whole UI page. I just want to share my observations over there. Just bring that kind of opportunity to introduce testing at different levels, not to wait till the end where the complete working product is available. Do not do that. Wherever, okay, only API contract is available, just bring that, and with Postman try to understand how things are working. You have the API contract documentation, just go through that, whatever the things it's possible, right? You have a documentation change, first review that documentation change, what's happening. Maybe it will be pushed to the from the help point of view from application later, but at least review that, whatever the documentation changes. So try to find the areas wherever you can introduce intermediate testing, and do not wait till the end where you have everything available, right? That's one of the thing. So what is the advantage of doing this? So first of all, you are not going to see on 8th or 9th day of the sprint the working product as a whole the very first time. That's not the scenario, because you have already seen the UI and you have already shared the observations. Those things are fixed on 3rd, 4th day or somewhere in the sprint, and APA, you are aware how things are working. Just now you are going to test the integration, so it's going to be pretty simple for you. So it's very important. Intermediate testing is definitely going to help and bring a lot of confidence, because we are doing testing at different levels again. It's not that we are waiting for the 8th day to start our testing. So this is my 4th best practice I want to share. 5th one, collaboration. Oh, what's collaboration as such for QA activities, Selvi? Yes. So what are we trying to do in backlog refinement? As a whole team, we are trying to understand a story. What is the functionality we are trying to deliver? What is the problem we are trying to solve? We are asking all the questions that is relevant to understand the story better and get a lot of clarification. And after the backlog refinement, right? So as a backlog refinement process, we all are in the same room learning things together as a team, not as a developer. Oh, developer alone is going to attend the backlog refinement, not the tester. That's not the thing, right? Everyone is going to attend. As a team, we are committing. So now, for backlog refinement point of view, we all are aware of the information, what the story is going to do. So now if in case 8th day or 9th day of the sprint, because we have 10 days, let's consider 2 week sprint length. Okay, so or 8th day or 9th day, we are actually getting 3 to 4 stories for testing, only one tester. It's highly impossible. Why can't we request developers also to do that? Because as a team we have committed for the sprint goal, right? Not from development, oh, development closure is our task, it's not about this testing task. No, that's not the scenario. It's all about the team goal. So how about as a team we are going to have this testing anyway in the backlog refinement? That's why I talked about that. In the backlog refinement, we all learn the same information about the user story, and already the test cases are available and you were involved in the review process. As a whole team, the review process was there for the entire team, not for only this member, that member. That was not the thing. That's why I clearly called out, tester shares the test case scenarios with the entire team. So now everyone is aware of the information, right? So for example, if I have developed a particular story, other than me, anyone can test, because they have the test scenarios, they have the complete understanding. They can take definitely guidance from QA for certain exploration scenarios or some kind of edge cases. All those things they can definitely take guidance, but highly it's possible any other team member can definitely contribute in the QA process and test the story. That's where collaboration comes into picture. So in the daily scrum call, 8th day, for example, 4 stories are available in the QA bucket. Definitely QA can call out that, hey, no, I need definitely support on this. Who can help me in this? I can definitely support, and you can do kind of pair testing for certain things. So that is something you need to introduce. So when we say pair testing, that is one another concept. So instead of one single person testing, and if you are looking for some guidance from some other person or someone else can really help, you can actually, it's like pair programming, same thing as pair testing. So you can actually as a group you can sit and test, so that you will be able to cover different scenarios and you will be able to test. Already the high level test scenarios are shared by the tester, so we have good opportunity to cover. So this is the very important point I just want to call, pair testing, and try to bring that collaboration culture so that you will be able to cover the testing with the help of the team. Not a single person needs to cover everything on the 8th day. The last thing I just want to call out is the mindset. We generally think, oh, story closures generally happen at the end of the sprint. Definitely not. Any time during the sprint execution, we can close a story. So bring that kind of culture and mindset change, that let's start winning by closing stories from day 2, day 3, day 4. Let's complete it. That's the reason now I'm kind of like going back to that splitting of the stories. Try to have smaller stories with simple goals. Do not complicate and associate more goals to a single story. If we do that, then it's going to be a cumbersome job at the end to cover the testing for that bigger story. Whereas if you have smaller stories, make that mindset, okay, this story, we have picked it up. I'm not going to hold it till the last day. Why we need to do that? We can close it on 4th day, 3rd day. This is something, definitely a change that is required. As a team, we need to have this change. It's not about from testing or from development. As a team, we need to have this change. Okay, we will not be holding the stories till the last day or till the sprint end to close the stories. We can close anytime during the sprint execution. That is definitely going to gain a lot of confidence with team members, because we are seeing a lot of stories getting into the last column, which is the done column, right, on your board. That is definitely a great feeling. That is definitely going to boost the confidence of the team. So this is the important point I just need to call out. which is the mindset change. So I'm going to summarize all these points and conclude how all these things are going to have a bigger impact on this topic. Though the first one we have seen user story splitting, which happens as part of the backlog refinement session. The second one, we talked about the task breakdown activity, which happens during the sprint planning. Introduce test review in addition to the test design, and share it with the entire team, the test review, the test cases for review. The third one, static and dynamic testing. It's not necessarily we need to do always the dynamic testing. We can definitely look for static testing opportunities so that we can bring or share the observations well in advance in the sprint cycle. Next one is intermediate testing. So in the intermediate testing, it's all about like do not wait for the complete working product to be available on the last day of the sprint or on the 8th day of the sprint. Try to identify the places wherever you can introduce the testing. Maybe the smaller piece of the story that is available on 3rd day, just proceed with the testing. And finally, you need to do the integration of these pieces. Then we all are good. The next one is collaboration. So when I say collaboration, make the habit of pair testing. It's not something that we need to have only QA covering the testing process. You can also take definitely support from developers and also have this pair testing concept. So please call out in the daily scrum whenever there is a need. And already we are aware of the information, and as part of the review process we know the test cases. It's not going to be a hard task for the developers. Definitely they are going to take guidance from the QA. So that's the collaboration with pair testing. And the last one is the mindset change. So do not wait till the sprint end to close the stories. Have the mindset that anytime during the sprint execution we can close the stories. And if we are getting into that mindset, we will definitely gain confidence when we start seeing in the board many stories are getting into the done state on the 3rd day and 4th day of the sprint. So now, just to summarize, I summarized all these best practices. I'm just going to conclude on some of the key factors here, okay? First of all, it's a team commitment. It's not from development, it's not from testing. We need to deliver the story, whatever the work streams we need to cover as part of that design, development, testing, documentation, whatever the work streams, we need to cover everything. Then we can claim that it is done, and we can say that we have achieved the goal of the story, what we're supposed to cover. So it's a team commitment. Please use the events like backlog refinement. That's why I kind of connected those dots and also used the events so that you know that these all are the places. It's not like only in the sprint execution you need to find solutions for everything. It starts from the backlog refinement. From the user story splitting itself, the journey is starting. So use the backlog refinement. Do not stick to, okay, this is with 8 story points, so I'm comfortable. No, try to understand the goal of the story. So backlog refinement is one of the places where we need to start this process. Then the sprint planning. Plan all the relevant tasks. Do not only focus on the development related task, also focus on the testing related task. And then come to the execution. Use the daily scrum call. Please call out wherever you feel there is a support required. And please call out wherever there is an opportunity available to test. It's not necessary it should come from tester or it should come from developer. It can come from anyone. Even product owner is conveying that, hey, like I feel that this piece is actually something we can do as part of quick sanity check. How about that? Yes. So that's the main thing that we look in the daily scrum call. And getting into the retrospective, please try to analyze these kind of situations, what happened during the sprint execution, how team actually used these kind of practices, and what are those practices really working well, and how to use those practices, or how to customize them and make use of them during the next sprint execution. Try to understand or try to retrospect those opportunities as a team in the retrospective event. That is another thing. So that is definitely going to bring some level of improvement in the future sprints. So my conclusion, so these all are some of the things how you can actually bring. My conclusion here is testing should be an activity that starts from day one, like how design, development, documentation, any other work stream, how it's happening, it's also starting from day one. And it also definitely needs collaboration from team. And also there should be something which is happening at the midways. Like for example, third day, fourth day, there should be some story closure happening. You should not collate everything and bring on the last day. That's why we have discussed about all these best practices. So as a team, we are committing. So it's a team goal to achieve that sprint goal. And now from testing point of view, do not wait till the end. Try to have these kind of mid check where what is the opportunity, what can be tested, all those things. Please use these best practices. I think I covered all the options that work for me in this episode. Hopefully this helped many of you, and this is one of the very common question and common I won't say it is a problem, but it's a kind of common issue that we see in many places. But there are a lot of options. You can definitely think through many other options as well based on your project needs. So that's all for this episode. Please subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned in the previous episode as well, we are going to have video content coming related to product management, Scrum interview questions, product owner interview questions, and product management. So I'm excited to share all these information with you all, and happy learning. Stay tuned, everyone. See you all in the next episode. Thank you.